What's going on, everybody? Tony is... Tony, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Okay. His camera's off for a moment. Hey, what's going on? My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. He's Tony Michael in Atlanta, Georgia. This is episode 149 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. It's episode 8 of What If? We're talking Pamela Voorhees, Friday the 13th reboot. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! We are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Friday the 13th. It's been in development hell for a not development hell, excuse me, legal hell for a long time right now. If you have not supported Vincent DeSantis' Friday the 13th Indiegogo campaign for Never Hike Alone 2. There's only 5 days left, folks. 5 days left. Might even only be 4 days left. I think they're only about 15% away from their goal, which is 150,000 US. Amazing. This is a feature-length film, the direct sequel to Never Hike Alone, of course. Congratulations to Vince and crew and everybody there. I'm excited to see what they do. It's great to see filmmakers supporting filmmakers. You know what I mean? I mean, that's, we're all one big family, and we got to support each other, and that doesn't mean there aren't some dicks that come along every now and then. Show business.
Why
but
is
they
my
are there.
video not working?
I don't know. That's why I asked, are you there?
I'm here.
You are. Tony's naked right now. That's why his camera's off.
It's everything's saying it's connected.
That's weird. Do you want to log back out and come back in?
Yeah, give me a second.
All right, do that. Log back out and come back in. They'll have to deal with little me and then big me over on the right over here. Anyway, yeah, so Friday the 13th. What was I saying? Oh, right. Never Hike Alone 2. Yeah, congratulations to them. Of course, they're very close to their goal, and I'm excited to see what Vince and company does. So that's always kind of cool and awesome. And like I said, filmmakers supporting filmmakers. We're all in this together. A rising tide raises all ships. And it's great to see him do his thing, and us do our thing, and others doing their thing, and it's great. It's great. That said, what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about something that I have that Tony and I. Hang on, here comes Tony. He's coming back. He's back. The man without a mask is back.
I know what I did. I think I joined with audio only. That's why. Because I forgot, when you send me the link, it gives me two options: join with camera, or I think I hit join with audio only.
That's probably what happened.
It's fixed.
You lying bastard! We knew you were naked.
I was naked. I was in my birthday suit.
In the nude. Anyway, so Tony and I have talked about this for a long time, and this kind of stems back to a video. Let me see if I can get the exact date on that video. 1 second. There's a video that I did. I think it might have even been before we launched the Two Dude Show, although I don't know. Hang on a sec. Dave McRae, Friday the 13th. I don't do too many Friday the 13th, so it should pop up fairly quickly. Oh, geez, I do quite a bit of Friday the 13th. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is coming from the 26th of January 2018. Wow, that video's actually got nearly 15,000 views. So it was a video where I talked about my what I would like them to do with a Friday the 13th remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it. And I'll get into sort of what I want to see here. And then Tony will bring his ideas into it. And then we'll mesh, our ideas together. Because, of course, we've talked about it on camera, off camera as well. But I know what a lot of people are probably thinking. No. You have to reboot with Jason Voorhees. You got to do it. He's the brand. He's the face. I get that. I understand it completely. I do. I understand it completely. I get it from a business perspective. And let's be honest, if you were a betting man or woman or whoever, it is probably likely that you should bet money on the fact that the next incarnation of Friday the 13th will start with Jason Voorhees. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. I get it. But
it's not guaranteed to be a financial success.
It's not.
As the 2019 film proved itself. Do you know, when I did the research going into this, that 2009, not 19, 2009, it opened up, it made 65 million domestically, and 40 of that came in the first 3 days, and literally it sank faster than the Titanic in the days after the opening night. I think it dropped like 50% even after opening night. And then you look at the box office flop of Jason X. You know what I mean? So when people sit there and throw out well, you can't do it without Jason, I'm like, look, man, they've done some Jason films here in the last of the Jason films that they've done have not been successful for the Jason brand. So I'm saying never say never, and don't throw out the ideas, you know what I mean, of something like even what Dave and I are proposing tonight, given the fact that the last Jason film didn't exactly crush it. You know
True.
what I mean?
And everything you've said is 100% correct. I will add that, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this, because this is an important point. Obviously, that was 13 years ago now. Hard to believe. We are in a different era. We are in the nostalgia. We are in the reboot returning sort of era in 2009 and 10 with.
Wouldn't you agree, though? We were kind of in it then with the Halloween reboot, Texas Chainsaw reboot, Nightmare reboot.
Not like the ways we are now. Not like the ways we are now. It's largely because of Stranger Things that has made what was old, new, and cool again in terms of the nostalgia in the 80s. So I think, because of that, we're looking at sort of this kind of thing, this return to our childhood in through a bit of a different lens over the last 6 or 7 years than we did, say, throughout the 2000s. Now, but there's a but on that. And the but on that for me is that, I don't know what else you can do with Friday the 13th.
To breathe fresh air into it?
To breathe fresh air into it, unless you're just going to do the same thing you did in 2009. Although 2009 was 13 years ago, when you watch the movie, the production value, the intensity of the film, it doesn't look like an old movie. It's still new, if you know what I mean. So what are you going to do? Are you going and basically that Friday the 13th movie from 2009 is the first 4 films in one. And so you what are you going to do? You're going to do that again? Is that what you're going to do again? Because I don't want to see that again. And Tony and I mentioned it too. Tony and I have talked about what if. Now again, the probability is low. This is unlikely what they will do for all the reasons that you're going to mention in the comment section below. Jason's the brand, Jason's the face, the hockey match. I get all that 100%. I don't disagree with you. We don't disagree with you. We don't at all. However, thinking about it from, and, admittedly, I'm not the world's foremost expert on Friday the 13th or even its biggest fan, but I grew up with Jason. I like Jason. I might have actually Friday the 13th I might have even been introduced to that series before Halloween. But having said that, you need to breathe new blood into it. And of course, we're not just talking about Friday the 13th fans, we're talking about the general movie-going audience. Fans will be there no matter what. Like I always say, you could dish out the shittiest trailer of all time, and Friday the 13th fans will be there day one, picking up their tickets at the box office. So,
but not on day 2, or repeat.
Maybe not. Well, yeah. Especially if it's a garbage film.
If they want Jason, they got Jason in that 2009 remake, but they didn't go back and support it like Halloween fans did with 2018 and Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
And I'm quite confident fans are going to do when Ends comes out this year. So, when I have these discussions with Friday the 13th fans, I'm also like, well, you need to go back and support your movies if you want to see Jason, because, you're not giving studios any confidence that they're going to make any money to make these movies.
Right. And I want to address something here again, because it's important that I make myself very clear. Tom Ungurian says, I disagree, Dave. We had Platinum Dunes, Dark Castle Entertainment, other production companies doing remakes in the 2000s. Right now, we got Blumhouse.
That's what I said.
100%. But I'm not talking about the fact that remakes existed. I'm talking about the cultural impact, the cultural mindset of the the cultural vibe of the fandom. Okay, so yes, we had Halloween in 07, Halloween 2 in 09, Friday the 13th in 09, A Nightmare on Elm Street 10. I'm not talking about remakes in and of themselves. Remakes have existed for decades. I'm talking about where we've been since Stranger Things, where nostalgia has been cool. Nostalgia has been big business. Going back to the 80s, all of a sudden is profitable, bankable. Right? Dare I say that that studios are now getting on board. We're in the world of streaming now as well, right? Where people want to see this. Nobody wanted to see that kind of stuff, which is evident from the box office, right? So I think it's not that nobody wanted to see it, but I'm not talking about remakes in general. There's always been remakes. There was Texas Chainsaw in 03. I mean, I'm talking
05, right?
06 was the beginning, whatever. Yeah. But I'm talking about a cultural shift in terms of the fandom dynamic, in terms of the pulse of fandom and the industry and the pattern of what suddenly was cool, what suddenly was marketable. You've heard me talk many times on this channel about trends, right? About trends. And back 15, 20 years ago, yes, they were making these films, but it wasn't trendy to do so. It wasn't huge business, right? I mean, across the board. I'm not saying that Rob Zombie's Halloween didn't recoup its costs. I'm not saying that Friday the 13th didn't have a big, opening weekend. I'm talking about across the industry, across like the pulse, right? The pulse. Think about it. Think about when listen, we were in our 20s in the 2000s. It was nothing like it is now in terms of that big business nostalgia. Cool to go back to the 80s, to the 70s, to make these retro this, retro that, retro this, that show retro, this show retro, going back and making, all these things that you're seeing now, whether it's television series, whether it's movies, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Hulu, whether it's Amazon. We are being inundated now. Why? Because Stranger Things kicked off and said, we want this. We want this. It's about timing. It's about timing. And I think if Friday the 13th, 09, the same movie had come out now, it would have destroyed at the box office. Would have destroyed at the box. The same film would have destroyed. I think Elm Street would have destroyed, right? I'm not saying that people would have loved the movie. I think the same response still would have been there. But in terms of business, I think it would have done better because of the pulse of where we are. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that remakes didn't exist. They did. But people caring about revisiting franchises, and all these ideas now about, well, why don't we pick up from here and erase that and pick up this and do this? Why don't we get Robert Englund to come back and all these hey, I got an idea. Why don't we get alumni to come back? Let's get all the alumni to come back. And that didn't exist 15 years ago. It does now. And that's what I mean by that. So hopefully I've been able to make myself clear. It's about timing and patterns and what is sort of, trendy in terms of, what's hot and what's not. So Tony and I both understand that, again, unlikely that they're going to do this or that they would even take this risk because it is a risk. However, I've always wanted, Tony has always wanted, we've always wanted to reboot the Friday the 13th franchise. It's a remake now. And yes, you could start, you could erase all the sequels and start from 4, 100%, absolutely. You could do the Halloween thing for sure. Maybe they will. They probably will. Maybe not. But I think if you're going to reboot it and remake it again, go back. Go all the way back with the intention of not trying to deceive your audience, because some people have said, well, why would you do the Pamela story? We know now who the killer is. Yes, of course. There are two ways you can tell a story like a horror movie or a thriller or any film, right? There's films that I really like, which you put your audience in the same position as your characters. So the characters don't know what's going on. The audience doesn't know what's going on. You're living vicariously through the characters and you find out information at the same time that the characters find out that information. So when a big reveal happens, whether that's a plot device, a plot point, or a character, you discover that at the exact same time as the character does, and you feel that sort of shared, genuine kind of like, wow, holy shit, you know what I mean? The other side of it is something that's called, I believe it's called superior position, which simply means that you as an audience are are in a superior position than the characters on screen. So you know what's going on, or you know who the killer is, or you know what the characters are trying to get to, but the characters don't. So the enjoyment comes out of watching the journey, watching the characters discover what you already know. And it can be very effective, you know, if it's done right. So that's what this would be. Of course, the audience knows Pamela Voorhees is the killer. You know, we know that, and we wouldn't try to hide that. We wouldn't try to deceive you with that. That's the, but we've never told Pamela's story before. And that's where the excitement comes from. That's where the interest lies, is that, yeah, now we're telling Pamela's story here. And we get to see that, right? And we get to see her downfall, and we get to see, you know, her story would essentially end, you know, well, I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could end it where you start leading into the original film, right? The first Friday the 13th, or you can try and structure the story in a way where you kind of make her story in Friday the 13th Part 1 one movie, and then you end it with, of course, where you would pick up, which would have been like Friday the 13th Part 2. Okay. Okay. Having said all that, what I would have loved to have seen is go all the way back. Tony, tell me what you think of this. So, because I know what you're going to get to here. We start the movie, okay, and it is essentially the end of the massacre that happened at the camp years ago. And I would start it where it's like it's a black screen, and, you know, you see the date, I don't know, what the hell was it? 57, 58, I think was it 57?
57, Jason drowns. 58, the two counselors are killed. Okay,
it's 58. Okay, so it's a black screen. You hear, like, you know, police banter, you know, 2514. It's starting to fade in underneath the black screen, right? Maybe you hear like crickets and stuff and all that kind of woo, woo, you know, and that kind of, you know, the cops showing up, whatever. It says, I don't know, June 13th, you know, 1958, whatever. And we cut in, and we're with these cops. Okay, it's not POV, it's handheld. We're moving, or it could be steady cam, but that might be a bit too steady, no pun intended. Maybe put it on a gimbal or something that's not quite as steady, but not like, you know, like this. Anyway, we're following the cops, and we're watching the tail end of a massacre that's just happened. And in the original, Pamela kills two counselors in 1958. Well, in this reboot, she destroys the camp. She murders it's bloodshed. She murders everybody. So maybe there's a body count of, like, I don't know, 8 counselors and children too. And I think there's like dead kids. Now, you don't have to see the children, okay? But just the psychological idea of knowing that she's taken out, like, yeah, I fucking go that dark. So we follow these cops. You can tell that it's 1958 because the cop cars are old. They got that one light on top that's kind of spinning around very slow. You know, they're in their 1958s kind of shit. And you hear like people hollering from the distance, "We got 5 more over here! Fucking kids, man!" You know, whatever, right? It's like, fuck. Like, it's intense. The opening is fucking intense. Like, really intense. And then, like, we follow this cop who's like, he's nervous, you know, and he's got his hand on his gun, and he walks into a cabin and shit. There's blood all over the place. There's bodies on the floor. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck happened? Like, what happened here, right? The cops are like, what is going on? They're going in and out of stuff and all this kind of, you know, really trying to look to see what, you know, what happened. And then, while this is happening, we get a POV shot from within the woods, right? And it's like, is that Jason? Is that, you know what? No, it's obviously not. It would be Pam, yeah, first name basis. It would be Pamela, right? But we don't know that. But you know, we get these POV shots from within the woods and shit, looking at the cops going back and forth, yelling, "We got what the fuck? Holy shit!" Like crazy stuff. Now you might ask yourself, well, why would Pamela murder the kids? Like, why would she do that, right? We understand why she murders the counselors, because the counselors were too busy having sex while he drowned. Yeah, I get that, I understand that. But maybe the kids, she took revenge out on these kids, you know, and listen, maybe that would be like, maybe the studio would be like, nah, I don't know about that. Okay, fine. But I would totally put it on the table because you never know. But also, I imagine that Jason was fucking bullied. I think Jason was bullied. He was fucking bullied. He was whatever that, I forget what the name, that how he looks, but he was made fun of. He was bullied. He had no friends whatsoever. He was a mama's boy. So yeah, I do think that Pamela, that his mom fucking took shit out on those bully fucking kids. And we're not talking like 4-year-old, not that any age of kid deserves to, but I'm just saying, like, we're talking like, you know, 13-year-old, you know, 12-year-old kids, you know, whatever. And maybe you do see like a foot or an arm or whatever. It's like, fuck, you know? And the whole opening is just this intensity, and you're ratcheting it up. The music is ratcheting up. The intensity begins to ratchet up as they discover more bodies and blood and shit like that, and things tossed over. It's, again, you're seeing the end result. You're seeing the end result of something horrific and catastrophic. It's like, holy fuck, what the hell happened here? The contrast of the horrific nature of what you're seeing against the backdrop of something that is supposed to be positive, a summer camp, children learning, having fun, being away, giggling, laughing, and you're seeing mayhem and murder and blood. And that's the opening of it. And then it gets to a point where, I forget what I said in that video, but it gets to a point where everything builds, and then of course it cuts to black, right? You know, and then it says whatever year it says, 1957 or 1 year earlier or 1 year prior or whatever it is. And then we would watch the story of how we build to that. That is something that I think would be interesting to explore. Tony, what do you think of that? What are your ideas? Because I know you have some ideas around the 1957-58 area.
Actually, I have a completely different idea. In rewatching the original Friday the 13th this afternoon, I wanted to pinpoint the exact time when Annie's being driven up to the campground and the truck driver is going through the bullet points of what happened. The boy drowns in 57, 2 counselors are killed in 58. There's a bunch of fires that happen up there. No year was given in the dialogue. And then they tried to reopen again in 62, but the water was bad. And that's where the idea that I have for this, that's where I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I could go off of. Now, certainly you can open up the movie with the fires happening. You could have like, you know, throwaway line of the firefighters, you know, calling it Camp Blood, you know, the drowning, the counselors being killed. But the way I would focus on the thing that made Friday the 13th so impactful was the big reveal at the end, the surprise of Pamela Voorhees. And how are you going to pull that off again when the audience knows who the killer is? And the way I thought you could do this, which has never been done before, one, it has never been done before that I can think of in any of these major horror movies, is you can mislead the audience. And when you're doing the reopening process again, which is, I know it's basically like redoing Friday the 13th, but instead with the counselors that you have on there, you could have 2 leading actresses who are, we'll just say like a Jeannie type character and an Alice type character. Very outdoorsy. One's a little bit more ballsy like Jeannie was. Alice was a little bit more on the reserve side of it. And what you could do, because she, you know, Mrs. Voorhees was such a part of the community up there, is after the incident that happens with Jason in 57 and the incident that happens with the counselors in 58, they never were able to pinpoint who did the killings. But we also know that in the original film, she talks about being, she worked there as a cook, I believe that was her job.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm mistaken. What I was starting to think is you could basically do all like, you know, POV kills, of all the counselors who were there for the weekend, or not weekend, but getting the camp ready to be reopened again. And where you can get the audience this time around is that as you approach the end of the film, is that one of the 2 leads in the movies ultimately reveals herself to be Pamela Voorhees. all along, you're the audience thinking that this is one of the counselors who's there helping getting this campground, you know, not knowing she's actually doing the killing until the big reveal at the end where she, you know, rips off the wig and she's got the short hair going. And you find out that it's Pamela Voorhees, you know, that's
not a bad idea.
It's a shocker. You know what I mean? Because like, how do you shock an audience at this point and surprise an audience and give them a twist that they don't see coming? And I'm like, well, that would be one way to do it, that you're leading you're going on this journey, you know, with one of these two girls that you think are is the final girl. You don't know which one, who it is, until you get to an ending moment, a dramatic moment where, you know, you could even have the young girl who's playing Pamela Voorhees as she's ripping off, you know, the wig, start going into that speech. Did you know that a boy drowned here? You know, all the da and so on and so forth. Today's his birthday.
So she would be she'd probably be, let's say, if it was like 20 years later.
Well, see, that's the question I want to ask, and I want to ask because it's really important.
Okay, well,
do you want Pamela Voorhees to be? Do we want the same timeline where it connects to the original film and we go through 4? Or here's an idea: you omit, you keep 1 and 2 intact, okay? Because this is where I can bring Jason back into the equation and make everyone happy. If you keep 1 and 2 intact, let's just, for argument's sake, now that 3, 4, 5, all that doesn't exist, Pamela Voorhees is, let's just say she's in her early 40s, 42-ish in the original film. All right. Because her age wasn't really established, but let's just say 42. So you subtract that 20 years to, you know, because it was 1980s, or it's almost 20 years. So 62. So she's in her early 20s at this point.
She wouldn't likely have a child who was 12 then either. So
not necessarily true.
Well, she would have had to have had him when she was like 11.
Well, when did Jason drown?
58.
He drowned. No,
57.
57. How old was he when he drowned?
Wasn't he like 12 or something?
I
thought he was like 12.
I thought he was like 7 or 8.
No, I thought he was
I thought he was like a kid.
I thought he was 12.
I can't remember.
But
anyways, the point is that I wanted to make her younger rather than making her like, because it wouldn't be believable for her to be a counselor there in her 30s. But if she's a counselor there in her 20s, helping this group of, here's young counselors in 62, we think she's a good person as she's there part of the reopening process, but finding out the big reveal at the end, oh my God, that's Pamela Voorhees, who's been doing the killing throughout the whole movies. What the fuck? Because here's the little twist that I would do at the very end of the film when she gets her last kill. She doesn't die. She goes back to her little said cabin, and you see a young Jason approach to her, and she hugs him, embraces him, and she says, "That's my boy." You could even do a callback shot to Friday the 13th part 4 with Corey Feldman, and maybe you just see Jason's eye as he's hugging his mom. And the reason why I'm suggesting this and why I'm omitting 3 through the rest is that, one, you make Jason human, that he actually didn't drown, which is what I've always said they could do from part 2, is that that the drowning actually didn't happen, but the neglect, that the fact that he almost drowned sent Pamela Voorhees off in this fucking rage, that she was pissed off at, counselors not paying attention to her kid. So she went to seek revenge and fake this story. And now Jason's actually more human than he is a zombie monster. So then that opens up the door. If you do this film, you can even bookend this movie with a Jeep drive. You says 1980, and a Jeep is driving up to the counselor to Crystal Lake, and that Steve Christie heading up to Crystal Lake. You could, but here's
I like where you're going with this. I like how we're like joshing out the ideas. But here's the thing to remember too, and for our viewers to remember too, that really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the hell happened throughout the rest of the films. Because at the end of the day, this is not a sequel. This is not a legacy sequel. This is a remake. This is a reboot of the story. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to have somebody like, yes, there are certain little things. There are definitely things that you would want to have in the movie that are very Friday the 13th, right? You'd want to honor and respect the legacy, because the last thing you want to do is disrespect the fans by removing the DNA, by, you know, completely removing the DNA. It doesn't look like a Friday the 13th movie, doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie, doesn't sound like a Friday the 13th movie. The names are completely different. It's no longer Crystal Lake, it's Bat Lake. Like, I totally understand that. You definitely want to keep the DNA there. But in terms of the timeline, who gives a shit? So at the end of the day, I mean, we could do this. What do you think of this?
It's important in my idea. If the girl is a part of all the counselors, you don't want to make her too old because it won't be believable.
I was just gonna say, why does it have to happen in 1979? Says who? Well, the original. Yeah, but this is a retelling of that story.
Well,
you don't need
that's
that.
true. You're omitting 3. You're omitting 3 and 4, so that tombstone doesn't exist anymore.
But even if it did, this isn't a direct sequel. So it doesn't have to, like, it's not like this movie is canon with the other films, right? This is not Halloween 18. You know, if we want to do a Halloween 18 where it's connected to the original, that's different. But in my mind, this would be going all the way back and telling a fresh, new first installment, like the others don't exist at all. And then you take some of the DNA from the series, of course. So, you know, tipping your hat, respecting the franchise and things like that. But it doesn't even have to take place in 1979. So what do you think about this? We open the movie the way that I wanted to open it, right? Where it's just that really intense, like the ending of something horrific. Okay. And then
you show the 2 kids who were killed.
Yeah. But in my mind, I think it should be a massacre. I don't think it just should be 2 kids. I think if we're going to retell the story, let's amp it up, right? Why do the same thing over again? I think.
So you're saying based on that the original Friday the 13th no longer exists.
Correct.
So none of that happened. So basically the timeline events. I forget the truck driver's name I know the girl's name was.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see what you're saying. So
those events never took place then is what you're saying. Just so that I understand what you're talking about. Because the way I'm doing it, I'm trying to squeeze it in within that timeline to bookend it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The 1980 movie.
That's not what I was doing. I was doing you absolutely a fresh start. Yeah. You could absolutely do it that way though. You certainly could 100%. And then it just becomes a prequel at the end of the day, right? It just becomes a prequel. Pretty much
film. That's what I'm pitching as a prequel idea.
Okay. Well, I was pitching it as a complete reboot and a complete sort of fresh kind of just the other films don't exist.
New jump start. I got
right. A new jump start. And my thought was, see, there are a lot of people. I think one of the reasons why, yes, Jason's the brand 100%. He's the brand for sure. And like I said at the top of the show today, the likelihood of them even doing this is highly unlikely. I mean, even in the 09,
but then again, what could it hurt? I mean, if you're going to jump the shark and put Jason in outer space,
but hey, if you spend $5 million, I think it's worth the risk. I think it's worth the risk. If your budget is low, I think it's worth the risk. You'll make that back. Don't you fucking tell me. Don't anybody tell me in the chat room that you wouldn't go see the Friday the 13th reboot with Pamela Voorhees, watching that trailer going, oh, this looks kind of interesting. Of course you would.
Just out of curiosity.
That movie would make back its marketing budget and production budget in the first week. Doesn't mean it'd be a good movie. But anyway, so my thought is that, yeah, you instill a fresh take on it, but taking those things that we talked about, because here's the thing too. I think for Pamela to work, for a reboot with Pamela to work, it's not about necessarily disguising. Although you could do this, and okay, so many thoughts going on at once in my head. So Pamela. In order for Pamela to work and in order for people to accept this working, you have to convince people, you'd have to hire an actress that is, how do I say this? It's like
You got to find a Betsy Palmer type.
Well,
You really
yes,
do.
yes,
a younger version.
Younger, like somebody like a Kate Winslet, like a really good actress, But see, that's the thing, is that you don't imagine her that way, right? You don't imagine, I don't picture Kate Winslet, a Kate Winslet,
my girl, Rachel McAdams would be pretty good.
Rachel McAdams, maybe. She might be a little too cute. But I would say that
I imagine at a younger age, Pamela Voorhees was a.
I don't mean attractive. Sorry, I don't mean cute. I just mean too.
I got
yeah, like a kind of
not believable to be a nut killer.
Right. It just I think like a Kate Winslet or what's her face from
who would have
Hereditary.
You know who would have been perfect? Because she's my kind of crazy. Brittany Murphy.
Yeah, maybe Brittany Murphy.
Brittany Murphy would have been, because Brittany Murphy would have been the perfect Harley Quinn as well too.
Right. But I'm thinking
Joker.
like
she's just got that cuckoo-ness to her naturally.
Yeah, because I'm also thinking too, like something to keep in mind is that what I imagine is we're also, this is not a word, but we're also maturizing the film. And so making it more mature, again, not removing the DNA, but there is no sense on making a campy, cheesy Friday the 13th movie that is just going to, it's pointless. It's pointless. I think there's opportunities here to modernize it, to bring it into the 21st century, to make it feel smart and fresh, but still feel like Friday the 13th, and make it fucking scary. I mean, really scary. You have an opportunity to make something really terrifying here. And I think you need an actress like a Kate Winslet or what the hell's her name from Hereditary? That's it, Toni Collette. Like somebody like a Toni Collette, somebody like that, somebody that's got that gravitas. You don't usually hear that word, when we're talking about women, but
if you're going with Toni Collette because there's a similar feature look.
Well, it's just the
I was going to suggest Vera. What's it, Vera Farmiga? Is that how she?
Yeah, you could do that.
Her last name.
You could do that. I think Vera right now for me is a little too hot in horror. If you know what I mean.
To Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, I think she's a little too. She's a great actress. She definitely would be somebody. She might be a little old.
What about her sister? The one that was in The Nun.
Yeah. I never saw The Nun.
No, I know, but I mean just the girl, the actress, her sister.
Perhaps. But somebody...
Someone said B. Arthur.
B. Arthur, Estelle Getty. Estelle Getty.
That, right?
But it's funny. Okay, so here's the thing. So you want to be able to, like, say the film begins. So let's say we don't go back. Okay, let's say we are going to tell the Friday the 13th.
I love the period piece, though.
Oh yeah. No. Hang on. Let me finish. No. Yeah. But I mean, with my idea, I started with 1958, and then I said at the top of the show, maybe we go back to 1957 and tell that story. Well, maybe we don't do that, or maybe it's a combination of both. But all I'm saying is, to your point, I'm trying to see if we can combine our two ideas. So what if we start?
Mine's more of a prequel. I don't know how you're gonna.
Well, hang on. So we start in 57. Okay.
Drowns.
He drowns. Okay. And like, I mean, you could have a prologue that lasts like 10 minutes. If this movie is like an hour and 50 minutes or something, your prologue could be 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be this 30-second scene or this 1-minute scene. I'm talking about like a genuine prologue that maybe it lasts 10 minutes. And you can fit a lot into 10 minutes. But I'm saying is that, so we see that massacre. Well, we don't see it. We see the end result of it. And then we fast forward into the future, but we don't fast forward to 1979, where Pamela is going to have to be 50. She's going to have to be 50 to justify having a kid in 1958 at the age of 12, right?
Jason was 9, according to people. He was born in 46, according to someone in here, and he dies in 57. So
he was 9. Okay, well, still, even if she was 22, that would have had to make her 13. I think that's a little. I think she probably...
Let's make her 25 then. 16's believable.
16's believable, sure. Yeah. So that would make her 35. Okay.
No,
so
would it make her 35? Or, no,
what I'm saying
25.
is that, so what we do is we, instead of fast forwarding, so we have my opening, instead of fast forwarding to 1979, which would be 20 years in the future. Okay. Essentially, we're only going to fast forward 10 years. So the original Friday the 13th is now going to be 1968, 69, somewhere in there, set against the backdrop of the late 60s as opposed to the late 70s, right? Okay. And that way we can incorporate your idea about making her a bit younger, and maybe she's one of the women at the camp, right? She's a little older than the counselors, but that's because she's worked there for years. The murderer was never caught. That fucking bloodbath of a Camp Blood, it became known, was closed for 20 years. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, 10 years. It was closed for 10 years. And then, they wanted to get it back up and running again, whatever the case is. You can fill all those gaps in, and, you know, whatever. And the town is against it. No, keep that down. It's got such a horrific thing against it, but they want to bring it up. They want to change the course and do this kind of, whatever the case is, right? Like, you can figure out a way to make it believable. You can have the town folk, no, keep that camp closed. It can be a real kind of tension between sort of the town down the street and the camp and this kind of stuff. And maybe Pamela Voorhees, who goes by a different name at first throughout the movie because she's incognito. She went into hiding, or, you know, whatever the case is, right? She wants to open the camp because maybe it was left to her. Maybe she's the sole survivor. She's the sole survivor of that bloodbath in 1957 or 57, you know, whatever the case is, right? Maybe she's the sole survivor. Nobody knew that it was her. She's crying. Maybe they find her. Maybe in the opening of the film, we find her, right? The cops find her and she's there and she's got blood all over her and she's got cuts all over. And they're like, oh my God, are you okay? And at that time, she's 25. She's one of the counselors. She's a cook. She's the sole survivor. And she sold it. She sold a sob story like you wouldn't believe. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. She told a whopper of a story. This is the 50s. There's no DNA evidence. Nothing. Her fingerprints are all over the place. Why? Because she worked there. Her blood is all over the place. Why? Because she worked there. There isn't a survivor that can say, yes, she did it. She did it. They just find her. She's crying, sobbing in the corner. We got one! We found one! We got one! Well, it's fucking Pamela. It's fucking Pamela. It's like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Fast forward 10 years, she's a sole survivor. Maybe she's got scars on her, things like that. She wants to reopen the camp, you know, and maybe she's working with the Christies and things like that, or whatever the case is. And new people are coming in and everybody's worried. And, you know, is this going to be success? This is such a bad idea. It's got a death curse. You know, you can bring all that into it, right? But Pamela is not somebody that you do not see until the end of the movie. As Tony said, you see her all throughout the movie. You just don't know it's Pamela Voorhees necessarily, because even at the opening of our film,
the only way to make that work though is if I'm an audience member and I see an older woman juxtaposed to younger camp counselors.
Well, she's not older. Well, yeah, but
older in the sense, the reason why I put her in her mid-20s juxtaposed next to counselors who are roughly 22, 23, 24.
I get it.
She's in her 30s.
I'm
going to know who it is. That's why I said, if you keep her in, if you bring it back a few years to the early 60s where she's 25 years old, and now you have a group of people who are there getting the camp reopened again, she's blending in. You're not expecting it because her youth, you know, she's in her mid 20s.
It's true.
If I see someone in her 30s, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm pretty much going to be my. If I'm watching the movie, I'm going to be zoned in on that.
Well, I think
as being
fair.
Pamela.
And
whereas,
that's
like if you have someone who's younger, all the girls roughly looking around the same age. That's where you get that reveal at the end, like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming because I wasn't expecting her because I thought she was a counselor.
Right. And it's a fair point you make. It's an absolute fair point you make. I think people will probably suspect somebody anyway because they know this is the story of Pamela Voorhees.
Well, yeah, they think it's Pamela Voorhees and they're just waiting for the reveal. When you get to the reveal part and you're like, fuck,
I understand.
Shit, it's one of the counselors that I didn't see coming.
I understand.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you get people now in a shock nowadays, because everything's been pretty much done.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's not really about the shot. Like, I mean, I think you could have her 30, 32, 33, still look young. I mean, that's not old, by any
but
stretch of imagination.
Young 20-year-olds, there's a especially when you're talking, because you got to remember back in the day, people matured differently than they do now.
100%.
You know what I mean? So
100%.
when someone got to their 30s, 100%. They looked a lot old. They looked like they were in their 40s,
100%.
You know what I mean? That's just because that's how it was.
People for sure. I would for me, I would probably still go the way I want. The idea that I was going, only because I agree with you because I agree with everything you've said. 100%. But I think that in order for it to feel justified that this camp would only be opening again just a few years later, we'd have to go back to the idea that there were only 2 murders, that it wasn't a bloodbath. There were no children that were murdered. Because really, at the end of the day, who the hell would send their kids back to Crystal Lake after, knowing all that? The problem
would with like, two deaths, they would have drowning. Because look, I mean, I'm sure you guys have this, and I'm sure people in the chat room can testify to this. I mean, like we had a camp near us where we were living, all urban legend stories, a kid
for sure.
A kid fell through the ice in the wintertime skating on there, drowned and died. Like that was one of the stories that went around town. Yeah. So, you have all those things, but it never kept the camp closed. Yeah. So, when you have only an isolated drowning incident and 2 counselors who were killed, and you're reopening it up a few years later, that's just, it's freaky accidents. It's not, people are not thinking that there's something really going on here, that there's a connection to all this now. I get it. And everything you've said is 100% right. The only thing for me, I feel partial to. But again, mine's more on the prequel side. You're jump starting it in a whole new direction.
I am because I see, I just don't want to do right. Like, and if I was going to jump start it, I see opportunity to actually. But you're right. If you're doing the prequel, you have to do it as 2 people. You have to do it as 2 people because that's what the 1980 film showed. So you have to do it as 2 people. You can't do it any more than that. For me, I see an opportunity to have a massacre, and I don't mean like it's like I'm talking serious shit. Like you watch that opening, and after that 5 or 10 minute prologue, you're sitting there going, "Holy shit, that was wow." If the rest of the movie is anything as intense, like, because it's got a maturity to it. It's Friday the 13th, but it feels reborn. It feels fresh, and that's why I think let's be honest, if that actually happened at all, the likelihood of that camp opening up again is unlikely. So that's why I think there has to be enough distance between the massacre and when the camp opens again, and there has to be resistance to it as well, right? Like people saying, no, keep it closed. What the fuck you doing? All that kind of stuff. But in my idea, I think Pamela could be 30, 35, and she's wanting to open the camp again, and she could even come from out of town. Like you write it and you structure the narrative in a way that it doesn't feel like the same person. It doesn't feel like the same person that you either got glimpses of at the beginning of the prologue when they're like, "We got one," meaning that we found a survivor. Do you see her, and do you see all of her? Do you see what the cops see, or do you just see glimpses of her and things like that? And then a young woman shows up, maybe she's from out of town and she shows up and you play it in a way that it feels, you might get people going, I wonder if she's, I wonder what's going on, but you play it straight. Like you play it in a way where it's like, no, this just feels like a girl that has entered. It's a new character. Like she's entered frame. It's, whatever. She doesn't talk about being there before, or she used to live there or anything like that. She just, maybe she wants to open up the camp again. Maybe that's how you play it. Right. And through the course of the film, maybe the counselors begin to discover that, wait a minute, she's been here before. It's not her first time. Like maybe she suddenly knows her way around. Like there's a scene where she kind of knows her way around and it's fluffed off as luck, or like whatever the case is. And you do have a few twists in there where, you set up the audience. Oh, it's totally her. And then something happens. You're like, oh, oh no, maybe it's not her. Oh, fuck, it is her. You know, you have something like that, right? But you're right. Our ideas are two different, but this is good though, because this is something that we could totally present, you know, to the viewers out there to comment after the fact. And it's like, which way would you want to go, right? Some people might want to go my way and add some freshness to it and restart, kind of telling, basically you're telling the 1980 story again, but you're modernizing it, but still keeping it really scary and that kind of stuff. Or you can go Tony's route, which you are telling sort of a prequel. You're filling in the gaps between, you know, through the 60s, the 50s and leading up to the 1980 film. Some people would definitely want to go that way as well. There's a few ways you can go about it. And then you're always going to have those people that are going to be like, nope, neither idea. It has to be Jason, has to be Jason, has to be Jason.
Well, and that's why I wanted the, you know, people to understand, like with my prequel idea, I'm not eliminating Jason. I'm, you know, the point of it was to open up a door.
Yeah, nor am I.
To open up a door to, again, you know, because the way I'm presenting my prequel, you know, is that it bookends right into the 1980 film. Like I said, you can have a post-credit scene of a Jeep driving up to Camp Crystal Lake, and it's the Steve Christie, you know, driving up.
He's naked.
And then maybe, you know what, maybe he's driving past Ralph, or a guy who's dressed as Ralph, and you hear "You're all doomed." You know what I mean?
You're all doomed.
And then cut to black, right? So, you know, you booked in, but you've got Friday the 13th Part 2. So now when you start going into your next film, you can jumpstart from Friday the 13th Part 2 you and start from there and start a new line of Jason movies. Because as I said, when I had in my mind where you have these young counselors who are in their, you know, early 20s, keeping Pam Voorhees at that age at, you know, about 25 years old, she would be, you know, she was 16 having Jason, very believable. Maybe got pregnant by
slut. No.
Well, maybe, you know, I mean, you can kind of play around with some of that backstory if you want, you know, whatever.
Who's the father? You are not the father.
You know, whatever you can do.
A little bit of Maury Povich.
You can open up with, like, you know, like the truck driver said to Annie on you can open up with, you know, the camp being burnt, or just random fires being, because he didn't say the camp was burned down. They just said it was random fires. And then they went to reopen in 62 and then the water was bad. So that's where I would set it, in that like 62, you know, time frame. And it's just, it's basically replaying the 1980 film all over again, where you have these group of counselors meeting at Camp Crystal Lake. They're getting the camp ready for kids to come in for the summertime, and all these killings start happening. And you have you're following the movie based with these two girls, like you're following the Alice type character and the Jeannie type character throughout the film. And again, you could go either way too. I don't know who I would pull the trigger on as the reveal. Would it be more shocking to see the Jeannie type character be Mrs. Voorhees, or would it be more surprising to see the Alice type character? But I want it to be the two girls, because I want the audience to be like, okay, who of the two are going to be the last one standing? And then you see one of them, or, you know, maybe there's a situation where the two of them end up, you know, they discovered, you know, some of the dead bodies, and they're running, and they put themselves in this cabin, you know, to barricade themselves, to protect themselves. And, you know, whatever character is looking outside, looking around, trying to see like what's going on. And then in the background, you see the girl pull the wig off, and you see she starts to do this to her hair, and she goes into the, you know, the did you know that a boy drowned here? You know,
oh yeah, all that for stuff. Sure.
And then the audience is like, wait, what? That's the killer? Like, because again, how do you give the audience an element of a surprise?
Right.
You know who the killer is, but when we've been secured throughout this whole film thinking that those are the counselors, that no, I didn't think that would be the killer.
Right.
That's where you're like, oh shit. Okay. That, you know, so.
Yeah, no, look, it totally works. The only thing I would say is that if we have and obviously I know she could say it completely different, but if we have her recycle what Betsy Palmer said in the original Friday the 13th, it kind of feels, and this is connected to that movie.
It doesn't have to be word for word.
Yeah. I guess that's her. It might come across as kind of, is this what she always says? She gets girls vulnerable into a room and then she's like, did you know a boy drowned here? It feels like it's her shtick, it kind of feels like she's doing stand up.
Maybe she just says that one line and then that's
it. Maybe.
You know what I mean? Maybe not recite the whole thing, but maybe just says the one line. And again, either the Alice or Genie character, I haven't decided which one I would use, turns around and is like, what the fuck? And maybe she's got the machete in her hand and then she starts to go after her. And then all hell fucking
totally. And look, it's a good idea. And I could totally see more people, although I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if more people were leaning more towards your idea for the simple, not that it's not a good idea. It is a good idea because it connects, because of nostalgia. Yeah. And I think people, I think and it's too bad, although I do understand because Hollywood fucks a lot of shit up.
Pretty much.
But they can also fuck up a lot of prequel stuff too. Star Wars. Anyway, so I think, although I know Tony likes Revenge of the Sith, but that's the bottom of it. But no, the point I'm making is that no matter which way you go, its intention is to breathe new life into it. And I think
I forgot. I meant to say the reason, the Jason thing, like, well, the Jason connection is like at the end, we know Pamela lives because again, I'm tying it to the 80 film.
Right.
So she does. So everyone dies in this one, which is, I finally know there's no survivor. Well, Texas Beginning did that as well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no survivors in this Friday the 13th film. And Pamela goes home and you see a young boy run up to her and she embraces him and she just says, that's my boy.
Right.
And maybe you get that back shot that you steal the idea of what they did in Friday the 13th part 4 with Corey Feldman. Yeah. And you just see Jason open up his eyes and you hear the classic, ma, exactly. You hear that and it cuts to black and that's where you jump off. That's why I said if you keep Friday the 13th part 2 in there, now you've humanized Jason. He's that hermit looking dude that's living out in the middle of the woods somewhere. He's not some zombie fucking, whatever, a joke of himself of what he once was in the beginning of all of this. And you've got so much to play with on that, because we never went down that road. So that's what I'm saying from the creative side of it. You're opening up a door to, as many Jason movies as you want at that point, because you're not retelling the same thing. But of course,
but our 2, 3, 4 are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all canon still?
No, just 1 and 2. That's it. The rest don't exist.
Oh, okay. Well then, so how would you let the audience know that?
Because she's embracing her boy.
Oh, I see.
I've always at the end of my prequel,
right?
And
so Jason never drowned.
That's
see that
thing.
But then doesn't she say he drowns in the 80 film?
She misled people.
Oh well, how are you going to let people know that?
I don't know. I haven't figured that part. I haven't quite figured that part. You could do it in the Jason in the follow-up sequel to part 2.
Right. She lied.
She lied. She lied. Even
maybe
though
she killed him.
He almost drowned. He wasn't being looked at. Because the whole thing of the way I interpreted part 2, and it's just me, I don't interpret him as someone who drowned and came back to life. I interpret the end of part 1 as a dream, and that never happened to Alice with little Jason jumping out of the water. That was just all in her mind and the stories that she was told and all that stuff like that. I always interpreted Jason as the drowning was fake, but Mrs. Voorhees was pissed off because of the neglect, that her son was neglected, that he almost lost his life.
Well, she was probably a neglectful mother. Maybe she was a terrible mom.
No,
that's not a bad idea.
I picture her being an over protective mom. And I think because of that overprotect, that love for her son, I like the bully idea, because you had said something that could be a way to tie it in as well too. On maybe she hid behind the fact of he drowned, but it's a combination of the drowning, the bullying. Right. So she went on this fucking tear in my film, the prequel, and in the 1980 film, and hid behind the guise of that he drowned. And then we find out in my sequel to part 2 that he never did drown, that it was all bullshit. Because again, when you put Jason in human form, which he's never been in, well, except for maybe part 2, you got so much fucking play there, but if you want zombie,
well, it is changing a little bit of the identity of what the character became known for.
That's what I know. I know that. Yeah, and I know tough. I know that's going to piss people off, but it's just like, dude, you've got 10 films that became ridiculous.
I know, but people love it. I mean? Listen, I totally agree, but
they love it, but they never went to go see it because these movies flopped at the box office.
I know, but we live in a world where there are people going to watch this video. They're going to be like, I don't care. It's not my Jason. Friday the 13th. That's what it is. Dude. So with my idea, again, it's not a bad idea. The commonalities between, actually, it's more than not a bad idea. It's a really good idea. But the commonalities between my idea,
yours is more of a safer play because you're restarting it.
Well, I am, because I think
mine is changing the whole mythology that you're getting drowned, which I don't.
I would come at it from the perspective I did because I just think there's nothing else to do with Friday the 13th. And here's something you have to understand. That, as much as we love these movies, and I will definitely take Friday the 13th, because I think Friday the 13th, although the later Elm Street films for sure, but I think most later slasher movies, but Friday the 13th more than any, I think is a perfect example of just camp. I don't mean camp as in the campsite, but camp and cheese, and being so, they were so self-aware of the absurdity of it. And it was a different style. Like,
it was the 80s. You can't get away with that anymore.
I was just going to say that kind of movie today doesn't go to the movie theater. No. And this is the problem that you're facing. That kind of movie today, and for quite some time, doesn't go to the movie theater. Now, again, right. I don't mean that it might not play at a festival or it might not get a short limited run here or there, but I'm talking about, like, back in the 80s, Friday the 13th, Elm Street, those movies were wide releases. They were epic. They were movies that you could go and see across the country in the movie theater. They were like, fucking, I'm not saying they were making as much money or being released on as many screens, because there weren't as many screens back then as there is now. But I'm just saying they were like normal, regular theatrical releases. That kind of movie doesn't do that today. That kind of movie gets tossed onto streaming and buried in the horror section, where you look at it and you go, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Yep. That's what those movies do.
Like you and I finding that movie that we watched here a few weeks ago.
Right. It's that kind of stuff. And sometimes those movies can be quite charming, and you're like, wow, you know what? That was actually a pretty good movie. And then sometimes you're like, yeah, I can understand why. But
like the Chainsaw Massacre film. Right. Perfect example.
Right. But it's that kind of...
and went straight to Netflix.
If you want to have Jason live on the big screen, like with longevity, I mean, really, do something that's going to instill real power back into the franchise, you don't remove the DNA, in my opinion. You don't change the DNA, but you gotta modernize it. You gotta bring it into the 21st century. You gotta have a little bit of maturity to it. That doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of cheese or a little bit of camp here or there, but you gotta, don't be so self-aware with it. Because I think if you do that, you're gonna have another one and done film. It's gonna come, it's gonna go, and that's it. Unless the only way is cheating. And what do I mean by cheating? Well, you do what Halloween 2018 did. They cheated. I'm not saying that if you like the movie, it's fine, right? But in some ways, and hey, I'm not saying that, it's because what I've wanted to do with It's Me, Billy, and the second part to what we want to do and hopefully get, Olivia Hussey and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's cheating too. And what I mean, but it's the good kind of cheating, right? It's good for business, right? I'm not saying it's like, oh, you cheat. I don't mean that. I'm just saying there's maybe cheating's not the right word, because there's a connotation to cheating.
Cheater.
Well, that's what I mean, right? There's a bad connotation to it. There's an angle to it. There's the smart shtick to it. There's a gimmick. There's a gimmick. That's what I'm looking for. And the gimmick is bringing old alum alumni back and getting the nostalgia feels going to all us 40-year-old men and dads out there that are going, oh, I'm 15 again, and going to the theater. And I'm not making fun of you. I'm that guy too. Fuck, I'm him. I'm just saying, let's call a spade a spade. That's what it is. Of course that's what it is, right? I mean, it gets everybody excited. I totally get it. I'm there. I get why they do that. It works. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that's the only way, is that if they go, okay, hang on a sec, right? They go, okay, this Friday the 13th to this Friday the 13th doesn't exist, and we're going to make a sequel to this Friday the 13th, and we're going to bring back Tom Matthews, or we're going to bring back Corey Feldman, so it's a direct sequel to 4. Right, so it's an alternate 5. We're going to bring back the his sister.
No, don't you dare do that to my boy Roy.
We're going to bring back his sister. We're going to bring back this. We're going to set there. We're going to do this. We're going to... But you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh. Now, the problem, though, the problem that Friday the 13th has is that they don't have a one constant like Halloween. To get Jamie Lee Curtis to come back is really smart business. To get Olivia Hussey to come back, fingers crossed, you never know, fingers crossed, is smart business, right? And it's smart for her when in regards to Black Christmas, because there's never been a sequel, right? There's our film,
I would say
but there's never been.
If they got Amy Steele, that would be smart. I think fans might be excited for that.
Sure, but I just mean it in the sense of that. With Olivia Hussey, there's never been sort of a series, so she's sort of the face of the franchise, if you will. She's that, you know, that OG. With Friday the 13th, it was a revolving door. It was a new guest or a new protagonist every movie, essentially, right? And so, although you have some fan favorites, that's fine. Jamie Lee Curtis, it's different because you have this one constant. With Heather Langenkamp, although she's not quite Curtis in terms of the identity of the franchise, she is more the identity of the franchise than anybody else because she was in 2 movies, and she was arguably in the best one. So, you know, again, that's why doing a direct sequel to Elm Street 3 or the original Elm Street only, negating the others with Heather Langenkamp and bring back Robert Englund, even though I don't want to see Robert Englund come back, not because I don't love him, but because I think you need to go on and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, doing that, that's a shtick. That's good business. That's going to get, especially the era we're in now, right? The pattern of what's really hot and I get all that. So the only way that Friday the 13th with this revolving door to make a direct sequel again would be to, like a sequel, not a prequel, you'd have to act something. You'd have to trim the fat somewhere. And you'd have to say, okay, and you take the 2 most popular, which are 4 and 6. So what do you want to do? You want to do an alternate 7 or you want to do an alternate 5? You know, and then
you pick up from where part 2 left off and you bring Amy Steele back.
You could do that. You could. I don't know.
I think of everyone in the franchise, she for Friday the 13th fans, if she were coming back and they were picking up from her from part 2, again, opens up a whole fucking door of whatever the fuck you want to do without having to, you know, you could do 2 or 3 movies with that, you know, within that timeline. You could have a moment where he dons the hockey mask, you know, again and whatnot.
You could. I question the. I don't know. I don't know if there's big business there. You know, there's big business in the minds of Friday the 13th fans, but you go out onto the street and you say Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, Halloween, it's far more marketable and recognizable than Amy Steele, Friday the 13th. It's the
same thing with Tom Matthews, though. No one knows.
100%.
Friday the 13th fan.
It's the same thing with Corey Feldman. And that's
Corey, I don't know where his head's at nowadays.
And that's my point, right? That's my point, is that that's all you've got. No disrespect to Tom Matthews or to Corey Feldman or to, you know, Amy Steele, but that's part of Friday the 13th problem when doing the trick, right? When doing the shtick, when doing that, it's far more difficult to do that. Yes, Friday the 13th fans will care, but I don't know if, people are going to be like, what the hell is this? Who's that? Why do I need to care about this? I'm being told to care. I should care about this person, but I have no idea who that actress is. You know,
which is why I think our idea is, I think if I'm a studio, I'd be really pushing them to say, hey, you may be taking our idea seriously, because like you just said, it's no disrespect to Amy Steele. That's my girl.
And she's retired now too.
and it's no respect to Tom Matthews and Corey Feldman. Again, I don't know where his head's at nowadays, because I know he's been kind of all over the map with stuff. I don't think the names are enough to bring. Yes, it'll bring the hardcore fans in for the opening night, but it's not, that's where, if you approach our idea, whether you do a prequel or whether you do Dave's idea and start it from fresh, it just opens up the door. It breathes fresh air into the franchise. Two, when you think about, if you're, they're in show business. So both of our ideas gives the studio enough to work with for a couple of films afterwards. 100%.
And
that's the point.
And the real trick will be to get the audience to care about Pamela. Now, I know some of you Friday the 13th fans might be thinking, no, I can. No, I mean, really care.
Want it.
Really care. And that was one of the tricks that, obviously, one of the things we had, I know it's a bit of a different thing, but the principles are the same, right? When we launched our Indiegogo campaign for It's Me, Billy, it's Black Christmas. Yeah, there's some people that like it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. They think it's a snore fest. It's not a film that spawned a franchise or a series. It's got 2 remakes and arguably 2 bad ones, right? Who the heck?
I thought there was only the one here recently.
No, there's the 06 one and the 19 one.
Jesus Christ, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the thing is that was one of that's why we were so...
show you how good it was.
Yeah, well, that's it. But that's why we were so humbled and so amazed at the support that was given to us for that film. I mean, it was amazing, but that was part of the talks and the discussions that Bruce and I had for weeks and months leading up to the launch of the campaign and doing this, because we knew the level that we wanted to do it at, and we were like, well, how do we get people to care about a Black Christmas fan film? If it's Halloween, we'd make 60,000 overnight, but we want to do Black Christmas. So that's part of the challenge, is getting people to care about wanting to see this. And part of that, of course, is believing in us, and people, even if they weren't crazy on the Black Christmas film, they really believed in us and wanted us. And that's all great too. But so those principles apply to Friday the 13th fans, right? Because the first movie, it's arguably one of the only first installments in any horror franchise that is not considered the best. Now, it's one of my favorite for a variety of reasons, for sure. I love that movie, but I absolutely acknowledge that it is on most people's, not number 1 or even top 4 or 5 in the Friday the 13th ranking. I get it.
Well,
I
understand.
understand.
In my top 3.
Sure, but you're not most people, Tony. I think most Friday fans, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Mine's just in reverse. Mine goes 2, 1, 6.
There you go. And
then 5.
But I love it, and a lot of people do. But part of the reason why is because there's no Jason, right? And so I get it. I understand that. So how do you get people to care and want to see this movie? Well, who you cast is going to be huge. And that's why I think, and how the character is written, what kind of a Pamela Voorhees is this? Because right now, the only thing we can draw from is Betsy Palmer. And of course, it's a 1980s movie. It's dated. She comes from the theater. She's a stage, she did, but she also comes from sort of the 50s and 60s. So she's got a style about her theatrical way of performing. It's fine. It worked fine. I'm not saying she was bad. I'm just saying, right? She's a different era of actress. So the only person you have in your head is Betsy Palmer. She was great, but that's it. And that's your Pamela, Voorhees. Well, maybe there's a Pamela, Voorhees yet that is going to knock your fucking socks off. That you're going to watch that and go, wow, was she fucking scary? She fucking I don't know what I just watched, but Jason who? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't bring Jason back. I'm just saying that if you can grab your audience by the end of that movie and going, wow, I would love to see more of that chick. Holy shit. Whoever it is, whatever actress it is. It's like Heath Ledger and the Joker, right? The principles I'm talking about, right? It's that kind of thing where you're like, wow, like, damn, I'm not expecting that. Like, that's what I'm talking about. The principles. I'm talking about the same principles applying where you think, okay, but then you walk away from the movie and you're like, damn, man, did they ever knock that out of the park? Because that's how you got to get people to care care about wanting to see that. And that's a challenge.
And that's my argument. Look, I don't dislike the 2009 film, but I know a lot of people want to see a sequel.
It was stupendous. I mean, you know, it's
fucking great dialogue writing, let me tell you.
It's amazing.
And I know a lot of people want to see Derek Mears again, but the problem is, again, it's show business. And that movie went like this and went like that.
It did.
Quick.
Did really well opening weekend.
Quick.
And then,
it did really well opening night. And then it dropped 50% the second day.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
I mean, yeah, when you look at the Friday, the 2009, the Mojo, I'm sorry, it dropped 25.9% day 2. Day 3. This is how it went. February 13th, it opened on Friday, 19 million. Day 2, Saturday, February 14th, 14 million. So it dropped 25%. That's
pretty good, though.
The third day, it drops 51% to $6 million. The fourth day, it drops 56% to $3 million. So within 4 days, it went from 19 million to 3 million within 4 days.
What's the next weekend?
500,000. Like
500,000?
If I'm reading it based by the week, and it opened up on President's Day weekend.
Yeah, but not.
No. I'm sorry. That's the Monday of the following weekend. It made 500,000. So the following weekend, it made 2 million, 3 million, 1 million, then 500,000.
Yeah, it's a big drop. It's a huge. What was the production budget? 19
million.
19 million was the budget?
Yeah. 19 million. It grossed 65 domestically, worldwide. 91.
Yeah, that's a movie that says don't make a sequel.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. Look, I get like some people in the chat room, they want the Derek Mears sequel, and I'm not saying I'm against the idea, but the studios are gonna look at those numbers and be like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Because again, show business.
Yeah, it's true. And that's what it is. And so, you know, how do you reintroduce? Now, again, the difference is, like I said at the top of the show, we are in a different era. And so you can play to the gimmicks and the tricks that are now at our disposal because of the patterns that have now come to fruition.
What about taking your idea? Here's another idea, like you've been using the word modern. What about taking your idea and setting it today, not doing a period piece?
Well, yeah, it could work. I'd be totally down for that.
I'd be down for exploring that. It's your idea, but
the only reason why I mentioned about going back to the 50s and the 60s was because what is a pattern that we've seen over the last 6 or 7 years that is very hot right now in terms of marketability, big business, and that is retro stuff. So going back to the 80s, the 70s, maybe not the 60s, but going back to that time is very sort of hot right now in terms of movies and entertainment, horror, and all that kind of stuff. It will go away. Like, this will not last forever. It will go away. These things are cyclical. They generally come around again, but in another 20 years, what will be hot when we're in our 60s and people who are in their 20s right now are in their 40s, it will be things like The Conjuring and all that kind of stuff. Suddenly there'll be this new wave of nostalgia stuff from the 2000s and the 2010s. And, that's what, of course, we'll be in a different sort of, oh, your camera went off, dude.
Again?
Yeah, it did. You might have to come back out and come back in. I'm not sure what happened there. So
what is going on with this connection?
The only thing that Friday the 13th has going for it right now, one of the only things in terms of, for you fans out there that really want a movie that is connected to the original series in some shape or form, whether it's Friday the 13th part, 11 or if it's an alternate part 5 or an alternate part 7 or whatever the case is, the only thing that I think that makes that more possible today than it was years ago is because of the era we're in terms of nostalgia. It's big business right now. And so it's possible that if you were to do a, that kind of thing, a direct sequel, legacy characters and stuff, it would pique some interest. But I don't know about the longevity of it. That's the problem. I don't know what kind of longevity you can get with it. You might be able to get a one and done. Just waiting for Tony to pop back in. There he is. But I just don't know what the longevity for it will be. There you go. You're back.
There we go.
You're back.
Something's up with the connection tonight.
That's weird. I don't know what's going on there. That's kind of weird.
All right.
But yeah, so, but I think that would be at least my approach. Yeah, would be, I'd want to set it kind of back because, and the studio may even say that. I mean, if I was to present it, they may be like, hey, this is great, but I noticed that you're opening the film in 2022. Do you think we could open it in 1962 or whatever? Why? Well, because everybody's retro right now. And it's like, okay, sure. But no matter what you do, whether you take Tony's prequel idea, whether you take my reboot idea, and again, these are not fully fleshed out ideas. These are just basic premises.
It's an outline.
It's an outline. They're just basic premise that Tony and I have talked about. No matter which way you go, the commonality between them, again, is going back to Pamela, doing something different, doing something we haven't seen before. It's still Friday the 13th. It's still got the DNA. But I just don't want to see the same thing over again. And I don't know if you can do that. You'd have to put a lot of icing on that cake. And that is, of course, alumni, erasing certain sequels, but not others and things like that. I just think you'd have to, and maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe that's what they'll do, right? I mean, look what Vince is doing, and very successfully, right? His is a direct sequel to Friday the 13th Part 8, where now it's Ghost Jason in the woods and things like that. He's got Tom Matthews in there. He's got, what's his face that played Rick Cologne, I think his name is. I forget the actor's name now, but he's got him in there. So again, that's part of the shtick, right? That's part of the gimmick. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I hope to get, who back too. But that's why we do that, is because that's the era we're in, and that draws more eyeballs onto it and makes it more exciting and engaging. Because if it wasn't for that, what is there? And I like what Vince has done. It's still Friday the 13th what he's done, but there is a maturity to it. There's a certain maturity there. It does feel like it's modernized a bit, and I appreciate that. But it's still got some little, Friday the 13th isms there, because that's what you have to do. Because if you're not going to do that and you expect just to do, because I hear people say all the time, I don't understand what the big deal is. It's just people at a camp getting killed. Go. Yes, but those movies go to streaming now, and they're usually not very good, and they don't get longevity out of it. So yeah, they could probably do that, spend $5 million, toss it on, Amazon or whatever, and away you go. But it's probably going to be a Texas Chainsaw, and if you really want thought put into it and you want care given to your Friday the 13th franchise, then there's gotta be some massaging. There's gotta be some noodling going on with some ideas and trying to figure out, how do we go back to go forward? What do we do? Because you always want to appeal to fans. Yes, absolutely. But you always want to do your best to appeal to the general movie-going audience as well. It's crazy. It's crazy. But some good ideas tonight. I like your ideas, man. I do.
Yeah.
Let's go over to the chat.
You cut out.
Did I cut out?
There you go.
Oh, wait. I noticed that.
You're off.
Wait, I'm back. Am I back? It says I'm back.
Man, something's up with this fucking streaming.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It says I'm back. It says I'm okay. Excellent connection.
I missed a lot of what you said there. You were cutting out on the audio.
Oh, was I? Oh,
Yeah,
I was just saying that no matter which way they go, they
now
really.
I got to think your internet connection.
Oh, it's probably Zoom or something. But I was just saying that no matter which way they go, I don't think just doing the same thing over again, because they did that. They did that in Friday the 13th 09. That doesn't mean you can't make that Friday the 13th 09 movie again in a slightly different way with different characters. It's a different story. So it's not about, the guy going to search for his sister and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. I mean, you can definitely do it, but you would just be making that kind of movie again. And that kind of movie with a big hulking Jason getting his mask, and maybe you'd want to combine, a bunch of movies into one. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I just been there, done that.
The only thing with the 2009 film is because I became such a big fan of Supernatural in the recent years, I'm just waiting for his brother Dean to show up to help him.
Oh yeah, that's right.
in the Impala, because every time
that's
I see,
right.
what's his name, Jared
Pakalecki or something, or
something like that.
Pakaluki.
But anytime I see him now, I'm just like, all right, where's Dean?
Yep, that's it. So chat room. So yeah, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on what we discussed here today. Let's go over to the super chats, because I know a few super chats came in, and let's go to the chat room and see what you are saying. Oh, only 3 came in. Good. I didn't miss any. Or I didn't miss too many, I should say. Riker H sends in $5.
It's a Halloween question.
It is.
Of course.
Says, on set, Halloween Ends footage shows James Jude Courtney preparing for a sprint in the jumpsuit unmasked and a person running with his mask. Michael runs now. I don't know the behind the scenes image you're talking about. I would have to take a look at it to see if it actually is a behind the scenes image or if it's something else. I don't know. I don't know what the image is you're talking about, man. So I can't comment on it, unfortunately.
I'm doing the same thing I did with Kills. I'm not looking at anything. I'm not watching anything. I'm not watching videos. I'm totally shut out, and I'll see the teaser, and then that'll be it.
What you got to do. Mike Skis, I think is how you say that, sends in $20. Thank you, Mike. That was very generous of you. Says, hey, Dave and Tony, love the what ifs. Yeah, we really like them too. Just going to reverse a comment I made in the Michael Myers 50s what if. Oh, okay. Now you have someone say in the film, this reminds me of String of Murders over in Illinois. This reminds me of a string of murders over in Illinois. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Mike. I think I remember that comment, if I'm not mistaken. It was what Tony said when he was talking about, this reminds me of a string of murders over in Jersey at camp, at a camp or something. But you're saying reverse that and say it reminds me of a string of murders over in Illinois. I guess just kind of a cute kind of nod to the original film from 78, I guess you're talking about, which is kind of funny because this is before 1978. So I think that's what you're saying, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's kind of cute. That's kind of fun. That'd be a nice little nod to the OG. Dominic St. Clair sends in $5, says they need to make a new horror icon instead of rehashing the old icons, not disrespecting Jason, Freddy, or Michael. Well, Dominic, here's what I have to say to that. And I'll be as quick.
What's the question?
They need to make a new horror icon and not just recycle the same icons over and over again. And here's what I in principle, I do agree with what you're saying. I do understand with what you're saying. Or understand what you're saying. Here's the problem, and here's what horror fans have to realize, and I know Tony is going to agree because we've talked about this ad nauseum, is that, again, it's 2022. And that doesn't mean you cannot create a new horror icon. Doesn't mean that at all, right? The problem is the pulse of horror has changed so much. 35, 40 years ago, slasher movies were horror. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't have other types of horror movies, but what was all the rage and what was all the box office and what was all the hot thing during the 1980s, the about 78 to 85 or 6, that's the golden age there, when it was on the up and up. By the time 85 came around, 86 came around, you were on the downwards.
They were the comic book movies of what we get today.
For sure.
That's what it was like back then.
Yeah, they were very popular. The problem is horror has changed. And now, and for probably the last 10 years or so, we've been really into the supernatural phase of horror. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean that you can't get a new horror icon in the supernatural world. But usually, at least in my experience, because I get this all the time, people have often asked me, do you think we'll ever get another slasher icon or horror icon in the same ways of Jason, Freddy, Michael, Ghostface? And I usually say, maybe, but probably not, because we're not in that era anymore. And usually slasher movies are they've always really been B movies, but they were B movies that were theatrically released back in the day. Not all of them, but like your Jason, your Freddy's and all that. But really slasher movies have just settled into what they've always been, exploitative B movies. Now you have higher end slasher movies like Halloween Kills and that kind of stuff. But as a whole, the genre has always been sort of, and now those movies go straight to streaming, like your Terrifier, right? You could make the argument that in 2016, along comes Art the Clown. Isn't he a new horror icon? Well, why don't you feel the same way about him as you do as Freddy versus, Freddy and Jason and Michael? Because he came out at a time when that era of horror is gone. And that era of horror is still, it's still fun, and for certain, sure, but it's not the rage anymore. Terrifier wasn't, if Terrifier had come out 40 years ago, it maybe not, but may have been a theatrical release. Who knows? But now those movies don't see that anymore. So we're in a very different era of horror. And right now, like through the 2000s, it was the torture porn, right? It was the Saws, it was the Hostels, it was that kind of stuff. And for the better part of 10, 12 years now, we've been in more of the supernatural side, your Paranormal Activities, your Conjurings, your Insidiouses, and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually, will slasher come back again? It might. I wouldn't say we're having a resurgence in slashers now. And I wouldn't say that, because really what they're doing is they're just recycling and playing on your, nostalgia. So Candyman, Halloween, what's the other one? Hellraiser, Scream,
even Chucky got his
Chucky.
TV series.
Yeah. So yes, they're back, but they're back as sort of like an encore presentation, like a swan song kind of, like a reunion tour. I mean, that's really what this is at the end of the day. It's not like we're getting all these new slasher films that are doing well at the box office. No, because new slasher films don't do that. I mean, although Malignant was very divided and very divisive.
Still haven't even seen that.
It's very divisive. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people loved it. I tend to fall in the middle. I didn't hate it. I liked it. And I think I liked it because I give credit to James Wan for introducing something we haven't seen before. It was a bit of a different take. It was combining a few different subgenres together. It did okay at the box office. They're talking about a sequel. There's a lot of people that I think they thought it was one movie, and then it suddenly became another movie, and it just felt like they were pulled in too many different directions, and it just didn't sit well with them. But that is, whether you like Malignant or not, that is James Wan, who arguably has set the trend for modern horror with Saw and Insidious and The Conjuring. I mean, let's not forget, he's the dude that gave us the original Saw, the original Conjuring, and the original Insidious. I mean, he set 3 massive franchises that has set the face of horror of the last nearly 20 years. And he tried to do it again with Malignant and give us something that was, he was trying to kind of bring that, but it didn't land really that well. And there's a few reasons for it. But anyway, so I know I said I was going to be quick, but you know me. That's why. I don't know if we'll ever see it. Not in the same ways. You'll see another horror icon again, but I don't think it's going to be in the same way. What are your thoughts on that, Tony? It could be, because we've talked about that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not going to be able to do a character type like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. I think where horror and slasher needs to evolve to, as I, again, spent my weekend getting in touch with my inner serial killer and watching serial killer documentaries all weekend on Netflix. There's a lot of stories out there, man, that you could do based on a true story. There's serial killers who go on killing sprees for 10 years or more, so if you're thinking sequels and shit, right? Ed Kemper is one of them. My God, that Jesus Christ, man, the shit that dude did. So I'm just saying, if you want to evolve the genre, you may have to start tapping into some of the real life shit. And look, horror movies themselves are a lot of it is based on real life stuff. But I think that would be an interesting way to get an avenue to it. Now, it's not creating the iconic, Michael Myers, Jason type characters, because now you're tapping into more true story stuff, but filmed in the style of a slasher film.
Right.
I think the way you have to approach it delicately.
That's kind of Malignant.
Well, yeah, I that's what I heard, but I would go more like, more realistic, but filmed in the way that they made them back in the day. Very simple, very low budget, and obviously you don't want to use the name Ed Kemper because he's attached to, these are real victims. So you can loosely base you can create an individual, you can base the movie on a true story, but obviously you got to change names just because you don't want to have someone go to a movie and see someone's loved one, as a character,
for sure,
killed on screen when they were killed in real life. But a lot of these true crime documentary series that I've been spending some time on Netflix watching, I was actually thinking about that this week. I'm like, man, there's a lot of potential here for really good slasher films if they took some of these ideas and implement them into and done in the way of a slasher film too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get it. It's not what I think people are hoping for, but like you hit it on the nail. We've evolved in this genre that we're not going to be able to do the shit that we did in the late 70s, starting with Michael, and then in what we ended up doing throughout the entire 80s. That's done. Yeah. That time is done. It's not going to happen again. So what's the next stage? What do you do? How do you reinvent the slasher genre? And again, as we've said, tonight earlier regarding the Friday the 13th franchise, and breathe, fresh air into it. I think you start tapping into some of this shit that's happened in real life and using that as your
inspiration, sort of.
Inspiration. Because there's a lot. When you start diving in, when you go into that dark hole of watching this shit on Netflix, you're like, I know, holy shit! Well, there's just some crazy ass stories out
100%,
there.
And you don't have, like you said, you don't have to tell the story verbatim. You just take inspiration of it and make it your own. Yeah. You tell that story, but from a you take creative liberties and, you make it your own. You change character names and all that kind of stuff. But it's not that there aren't slasher movies out there. There's a lot of slasher movies out there. They're just all B, C, and D movies that wind up in the garbage bin on Netflix.
I know Danielle Harris still makes them.
She
right?
does.
She does. I don't watch them, but I know she does make them still.
Sure. And I'm not saying they're all awful and things like that. I'm just saying that the era of slashers being big business is gone. And the reason why Halloween, you can't say, but look, Halloween did well. And so but that's Halloween. Look at Candyman, but that's Candyman. They're not new, like you can't say we're having basically the point I'm making is that you can't say we're having a slasher resurgence, because look what's resurging. It's the old slasher movies. Well, of course, and look at the era we're in, nostalgia. There's very specific reasons why when they announce Hellraiser, Candyman, Halloween, when they eventually announce Friday the 13th and Freddy and all, that people are like, that they will do well because it's nostalgia dollars. That's what it is. But if you were to announce, Vice Hammerman or something, Vice Hammerman is not going to do anything. They probably won't even take the risk and release that on, in the theaters. Why? Because nobody cares. People are going because of the nostalgia. It's the reunion tour of your favorite band. That's what it is.
To be honest with you, I think movie theaters are a dying breed anyways. Because streaming has become such a thing and become so popular. I'm not saying movie theaters will be completely obsolete, but I don't think we'll have as many.
As technology evolves, they'll evolve. Have to evolve. AJ Bandito sends in $5. Thank you, AJ. Says, how about having a young Pamela targeting the young couple responsible for Jason's death and have it set in the early 80s with Angelina Jolie as Pamela? So I see. So, okay. So
I think
interesting.
you missed a couple before that too, just to give you a heads up. Yeah. There was like a couple that came in before.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I will go back and get them. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I like it.
It's not bad. I don't mind it. Angelina Jolie is interesting.
I think she's a little too old.
I think she's too, well, yeah, I think now she's in her late 40s. Yeah, older. Yeah. She still looks great. But
no, she's got to be way more than, how old?
She's 47 or something, or 48. She's only a few years older.
5 years older than us?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Hey, Google.
Really?
How old is Angelina Jolie? 46.
Holy shit, she is only a few years older than us. I thought she was in her 50s.
No.
All right.
She's only like 3 years older than us. Yeah, it's not a bad idea, man.
Well, she could be, as far as a reboot, like Dave's idea, she would be good for that because,
maybe,
about as old as Betsy Palmer was.
Well, that depends. Yeah, if I was to set it in the late 60s, she'd have to be younger, but late 70s, yeah, maybe. Mark Rend sends in $2, says, was Blockbuster manager in 2003, then they shut down. Very cool. Very cool. I worked for Rogers Video back before I went full time as a voice actor. I've been full time now since 2006. And before that, when I left college in 2001, I worked at Rogers Video. Now, we had Blockbusters here in Canada as well. We had them. They were all over the place. They were just as popular here as they were in the States. But one of Blockbuster's competitors was a video chain, a Canadian chain here called Rogers Video. Rogers is the big telecommunications company here. They own the Blue Jays, the Rogers Center. I still call it the Sky Dome, but they're huge. They're like AT&T kind of thing here. And so Rogers Video, it was a video store, and they had cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And I worked at Rogers Video for 2 years. So it was great. I had a lot of fun working at it. It was the perfect environment for somebody pursuing their career. And then I was able to leave. Which is great. Dominic St. Clair, another one, follows up with $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, hey, Dave and Tony, I mentioned I'm doing a Nightmare on Elm Street fan film. When I start Indiegogo, will you support me? Well, let us know, man. Let us know. Just keep in mind, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into that. So, take your time with it. It's gotta, you have to have people. I can't make any promises. Okay. But, just know that, take your time with it and put a lot of work into it. And I wish you the best of luck. I wish you the best of luck with it for sure. Cause it ain't easy. AJ Bandito sends in, I got that one.
You got that one.
I got that one. And, Mark Wren sends in $2, says, show me the way to go home and I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago. It got right to my head. Yeah. Back to Dominic for a second. Yeah. Just take your time with it. Don't rush it. One of the biggest advices that I have for people starting an Indiegogo, campaign is,
most don't succeed.
Most don't succeed. Right. And I'm
so
not,
don't take it personally if you don't.
Right. I'm not
that. That's very important.
Yes. I'm not saying that to discourage anybody. I say it because, it's
reality, dude.
It's reality. And
Jesus,
we succeeded with Billy, primarily because of the reach that I had, the marketing that I did for it. I made people care about it. And it is not lost on me how much of unusual it was for us to actually raise, our goal was 60,000 Canadian, we raised 64,000. And we just raised that, right? Like that came in right at the end, which is amazing. And again, I thank you all who did that. And the last remaining Blu-rays are about to go out. So just want to say we haven't forgotten about you. But when you can't just create a campaign, put it up online and just sit there and wait. You have to get people to care about it. You got to share it with your friends and your family. And, you really got to get people to care about it. There's a lot of people, I think, that they see what I've done or they see what Vince has done. And Vince is on a different level as well, because he's got 2 films in the bag that are professional. He's also,
he's got a good audience base too.
He's got a good audience base, and he's doing Friday the 13th. He's doing Friday the 13th. not to downplay his hard work, but it's Jason. But to be fair, the first campaign he launched, which I think might have been on Kickstarter, Vince can correct me if I'm wrong if he ever sees this. I don't know if they raised their budget because he had nothing to show for it at first. And then he goes out and he makes Never Hike Alone, which has over 3.5 million views now. And of course, people see what he can do and the production that he brings and the quality that he brings. And it's Jason, and they're excited for Jason. That's been dry with, because of the legal shit and all that kind of stuff. They want him back. And
that's the key thing, because it's been so dry with that franchise. That's all fans are getting right now.
Right.
Especially fans
exactly.
of the franchise.
Exactly.
That's it. That's all they're getting.
Exactly. But if you look at what Vince does now, he's got a reach, right? He's got thousands of subs. He knows how to market it. He knows how to sales or be a salesman. And that's what you have to do. Vince is on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook every day, and literally every day. And he said to his fans, he says, listen, I'm going to annoy the fuck out of you for the next 4 weeks. I will annoy the fuck out of you for the next 4 weeks. I mean, I'm probably saying it a bit more crass than he did, but that's what he's saying, is that, but understand that this is what you have to do. And that's what we do with Billy. I know we did a lot of Billy shows and we were always talking about Billy, but that's what you have to do. We're not backed by studios. Nobody is giving us this money. We need to market ourselves, and we have to convince you, the audience, that we're the men or women or whoever you are for the job. That's what you have to do, right? And thankfully, Vince has been able to do it. He's on the cusp of doing it again. We were able to do it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, if we get a chance to do the sequel, people will come out and support Billy too, because we want to wrap it up. We'd like to complete the story. It's not a complete. I mean, it's a it's a complete movie in and of itself, but it does end on a cliffhanger, an epic one, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it. But anyway, I digress. The point I'm making is, buddy, I wish you the best of luck with it, but just keep in mind that it's tough. It's tough. So there's a lot of work ahead. You really gotta, do the best that you can by getting it out there. So, but I wish you the best. I wish you the best. Yeah. Okay, Riker H sends in $5, says, in Halloween 2, 1981, did Loomis shoot the glass door right before Michael walks through it, or did Michael just walk through the glass door? I've always thought he just walked through the glass door.
There's a glitch in the Matrix.
Well, it's sugar glass, right? That's breakaway.
Yeah.
So Dick just walked through. Don't you think...
So Dick just walked through.
Dick just walked through. But don't you think...
Good old Dick.
Shout out to the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast, Darren and Frank. Darren has said this many times, and I could not agree with him more. What? Tony, don't you think, because we don't really like it, it's kind of like you don't realize until somebody brings it to your attention and you're like, yeah, it is crazy. The fire walk at the end of Halloween 2 has got to be, still to this day, one of the most epic, crazy firewalks I have ever seen in my life or ever put to celluloid. I mean, it has to be.
It's got to be one of the longest, next to Freddy's firewalk.
And that
at the end of Elm Street.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about how engulfed.
Yeah, I know. Michael was engulfed,
and that was really Dick Warlock. And how engulfed he was.
Well, he was a stunt guy, right?
He was. Yeah, he was. But I mean, he must have been walking down there. The noise from the flames. And you can tell he's in that big suit. You can tell that Michael kind of looks like, the Michelin Man there. He's kind of,
Listen,
but you suspend your disbelief and whatever. It's an inferno. I don't think it's like normally you just see somebody's back or you see bits and bobs of flames. This is like an epic walking inferno. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think this is a $1 million idea T-shirt where you got a shirt of Michael engulfed in flames walking down the hallway, and right below it just says Dick's got balls.
Dick's got balls. That's what it is. Yes.
Knowing it's Dick Warlock doing the walk.
100%.
He's got balls of steel, man, to do that. Because
I don't
obviously
know.
When you're dealing with fire, and especially probably back then, Jesus,
I know.
You hear some of the stories that and the safety shit and the shit that some of these actors and actresses had to go through. It's the safety measures were taken, but they're nowhere near what they are today.
That's right.
So I can only imagine just like, I'd love to ask him too, like, you know, like how close is it to like going like south, you know, maybe like how close were you for this to turn real bad?
Dude, I was just going to say, I don't know if anybody has ever asked him this. I mean, I'm sure there's some video footage somewhere of Dick talking about the firewalk, I would imagine. And maybe it is on one of the Halloween 2 docs or something. I don't know. I can't remember. But I'm telling you, and he's in his 80s now, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he's been recently doing a few little conventions, which is amazing. I know he retired there for a bit, but he's been since doing, I don't know what his schedule's like, but man, that is one question I would love to ask him is, Dick, that firewalk. I mean, tell me, to this day, I don't know if I've ever seen a more engulfed. I mean, he's not just on fire, he is on fire. And everything around him. And it's like, holy shit. It's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. Dick's got balls, man. Dick's got balls. He does. Dominic St. Clair sends in $5. Thanks, man. Says, thank you, Dave and Tony. That means a lot. When you have another It's Me, Billy Indiegogo, I'm there for you. Original Black Christmas is my favorite. Appreciate that, Dominic, very much. I really do. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about Billy. Obviously, I've made some recent tweets and posts about it. Some people have been asking, is that it supposed to be a sequel? Again, it was always designed to set up, it was always designed to be the first part of a 2-part story. But obviously I have a video on my channel where I talk about, in order to have done the whole thing, we would have had to have asked for about $130,000. And we didn't think we were going to get that. And we were right. We wouldn't have got that. So we figured that why not just make here's a good part in the story that would be an epic moment to end it. Let's end it there. See if people really like it, because we knew we were going to deliver on the quality. See if people really like it, and then hopefully, if it does well, it gets eyeballs on it. We'll be able to, go in, finish the story, and complete everybody's arcs. So that's always been the goal, but we just didn't want to bite off more than we could chew. So fingers crossed that we'll have a chance to do that, because it'd be fun to do for sure. Tony, you want to pick one? I'm always fucking picking these things here. Why don't I let my co-host pick one?
You got all the super chats.
I think I did. Yes, I think I did. Why don't you?
Robert Fidoff, Dave and Tony, if Friday the 13th came out in 1978 and Halloween came out in 1980, do you think Halloween and Michael Myers would be as iconic as they are today? Yeah. Just would have been a role reversal. It's role reversal. That's it. You're talking a period of 2 years difference, not really a big difference. There's so many things happened. It was the perfect alignment of, stars, however you want to say it, the fact that there was no movie called Halloween, the score, the cast, everything, and the simplicity of the original film. Yeah. It just doesn't change it at all.
Yep. Agreed. Flick Symmetry says, how much did, Chris Stuckman. Yeah. He but again, that's a perfect example of, because his reach, he's got over 2 million subs. It makes sense, right? It makes sense. Now that's a guy that doesn't have to do a lot of promoting. He can get on there, do one video asking people to help promote his film. And because he's got, over 2 million subs and Deadline does an article on him. Yeah. He doesn't have to do too much, but he's earned that, as well, right? So
I had to think for a minute who that was, and I'm like, oh yeah,
he's a movie reviewer on.
I've caught a couple
on YouTube.
Videos here and there.
I don't mind him. I think he's quite film savvy, intelligent.
Yeah,
I'll be curious to see what he does.
Tuned out after about a minute, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't actually. I really
love the way you said that.
But I mean, in fairness, I don't really care about movie reviewers. So
there you go.
Like,
no, he's very fair.
It's any reviewers.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Fuck him, you piece of shit. The No, I get it. Let me see here. Mike Johnson says, I love Halloween 2's ending. Luma says, it's time, Michael. And then bam, so epic and so dope. Yeah, it's time, Michael. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave and Tony, would you guys like to have Harry Manfredini come back to do the score for a sequel or reboot? Ooh, good question.
If not him, I think you should definitely, I think whoever does the composing should definitely, it should have the Harry Manfredini sound. You should have that sound. You should have the soundscape of the original 2 Friday the 13th films for sure.
Right.
And music that was played.
So do you think it should actually be like bubble, 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 bubble?
It's not even just that. If you're talking about the opening score, sure, but I'm just talking about throughout the whole movie.
Right,
There's a certain when you watch the first 2, and I have the first 2 soundtracks on vinyl, and I listen to them. When you listen to those soundtracks and you watch the movie, Harry designed a very specific sound that I thought was the identity to Friday the 13th. But then as the franchise progresses, it got away from that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
You know, and
the first 4 films have that identity.
Yeah, and then as it gets towards the later half, it's nowhere to even exist. So I definitely think they should, whatever they do. I think that might be, you know, it'd be interesting. Someone would have to spend some time doing this, but it would be interesting to see someone take the sound design of the 2009 Friday the 13th, drown it out, and put in the old Harry Manfredini, and see what that would do to change the tone of the movie. Because it would probably even make you feel like you're watching a Friday the 13th movie even more so.
Oh, it would. It totally would. I think there's the only thing I would say to that is there is a datedness to it. It's
so great.
For sure. I absolutely agree. But I think that what would likely happen is I don't think it would be a copy and paste. I think what would likely happen is they would, you know, kind of like what we did with Billy, you know what I mean? And sort of, you know, one of the compliments I know that we got on the film was the soundtrack and the sound, like, you know, the sound design and how it was modernized, but it was very Black Christmas. And I think that's what you have to do. I think you have to, you know, bring it into the 21st century, so to speak. But I don't mean that it's not identifiable. I don't mean that because a lot of film scores, not just horror, film scores are they don't have a footprint. They don't have an identity. They're just sort of the general, you know, action sound, the general adventure score, the general tension score. And what Halloween had, what Friday the 13th had, what Elm Street had was a very specific identity to that sound. I think you do bring that back for sure. But I think it would be okay if you kind of just make a little bit of like, ooh, maybe it's a bit bassier, or maybe there's a few extra strings, you know what I mean? Or something just to kind of, you know, fill it out a bit, but it's totally Friday the 13th. That's all I would say to that.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Agreed.
All right. Let's see. We're almost at 2 hours here.
If you want to take a couple more and then wrap it up, I'm good.
Yeah, I'll take a couple more. And then we will wrap it up. Let me see. Evil Alex says, Dave and Tony, what do you think of adding the OG film's lore about Michael standing at the window in his sister's room watching out the window? What do you guys think it means? What will explain this? He's asking what do you think the explanation will be for Michael standing at his window, looking out his window in Halloween Kills? You know how it's like,
you mean when he kills Karen?
Yeah. But you know,
and he's staring out the window.
Right. But when Hawkins says to Laurie, you know, it's not about you, or no, when Karen says in the hospital room or something that, you know, he's always about somebody. I fucking can't remember. Somebody said something about how Michael, he's just want to go home because he just wants to stare out his window, and kids used to remember seeing him staring out his window and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people have put a lot of effort and thought into what does staring out the window means. What is he looking at? Is he looking at the radio tower? Is he looking at whatever? I don't think really at the end of the day, I don't think we should know.
He's looking at birds and trees.
Yeah, I think it's more just it's more just a God, fans need to know everything.
He's a bird watcher.
Yeah, that's what it is. He's looking at
he's like the dad in Beetlejuice.
He's looking at a squirrel scratch its nuts. That's what I think. No,
he's got
but
his binoculars. He's doing a little peeping Tom, and then he goes back to watching birds.
That's it. No, I.
That's a good horror movie, by the way. Peeping Tom.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 1960, I think.
Yeah,
59.
Well, it's old school, but that's
It is. It is good.
We should watch that one night.
We should. I'd be down for it. I think it might even predate Psycho.
I think
not by much though.
Not by much, but I think you're right.
Yeah. I would say that we'll likely get an explanation. Maybe not. I don't think we need one, but I would like to think it's not as literal as I think people are making it out to be. And maybe that's just because I want it to be. I want there to be more philosophical. When you have more philosophical things, then they don't require a, concrete, literal explanation. You leave it up to the audience to fill in the gaps and blanks. And I think that kind of storytelling is more important than more important with Michael than anybody else. You can allude to certain things, you can hint at certain things, but I don't think you necessarily need to explain exactly what he's doing. You can hint at the fact that maybe, he was looking out the window. Why? Well, I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it was introspective. Maybe he wasn't looking at anything. Maybe he was just looking out the window thinking, but what was he thinking? Who fucking cares? I don't know. And I think that's how I would like to think they're going to play it, but I don't know, man. It's a good question, but I don't know. Hopefully we'll never know.
He was thinking about releasing a load. I don't know.
Maybe he shat his pants right there.
Exactly.
Wolfie P17 sends in $5, says, "Hey guys, have you heard about Crystal Lake Tours in New Jersey?" We have. Highly recommend it. Film location to the original. Yep. Camp Obi Bosco or Obi Busco or something. Something like that.
Well, considering I don't like to be around a large group of people, I'd only go if I can rent it out myself.
Yeah, I'd love to go. I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun. I've watched. Well, you can watch it on YouTube and stuff.
And I live literally 45 minutes from Part 6 filming location, so I do see that on a frequent basis. When I'm out, because where I go I haven't been able to go out as much lately thanks to our $5 a gallon gas price, but it's nuts,
brutal.
Man. So I can't go out to the country I can't even go out to the country and take pictures for fun because it's going to cost me $100 to do.
It's crazy. It's like that here too.
That's where that's where Part 6 camp is, and I'm in that general area a lot shooting my general photography stuff, and like I said, if I don't do crowds of people or even groups of people, so if I can rent it out, I totally would be down to do that myself.
For sure.
That'd be a lot of fun. You can't come. It's mine for the weekend.
Dominic St. Clair, $5 says, "What happened to Crispin Glover? He was in the final chapter." He's still around. Crispin Glover's.
I see him pop up in interviews every now and then.
Yeah. He's a bit eccentric and a bit strange, a bit.
It's probably why I like him so much. I totally can relate
for sure. And I don't say that as a slight to him. I just say that's the reality. He's a bit eccentric, a bit strange, a bit. We're
all a bit strange
for sure. But I think he's not a. He's a. I'll just say that he's eccentric, a bit strange. He still does things. He still acts here or there. He's still around. He's just not in mainstream blockbusters or things like that. And I don't think he has a desire to be either. I think he has no desire to do that kind of stuff. I think he takes his career very seriously. He's one could perceive him as a bit of a snob. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying that I could understand he's got that, and I'm not saying he is that way. I'm just saying I think he's a bit eccentric. And that's why he doesn't appear in, the next Marvel movie or, because he doesn't, he likes to do more obscure stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. And good, all power to him. Good for him. All right, well, listen, that's going to do it for Tony and I here on episode 149.
I think you got a super chat.
Oh, did I?
Oh, no, you didn't. We're good.
No, I got that. Thank you to our great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, for doing what you do. We appreciate it. Thank you to the Super Chat questions that came in, the non-Super Chat questions. You are all amazing. Comment below and let Tony and I know what you thought of our ideas, which direction you would go with, or your own idea for rebooting the Friday the 13th franchise. What do you want them to do? Comment below and let us know. Tony and I will be back next week. Next Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the big 150th. 150th. Hard to believe. 150 episodes. Incredible. Tony, any last things?
No, this was really cool. And Brandon, sorry I didn't get to answer that question. What is it that I like about Boys in the Hood? Because I'm wearing the Boys in the Hood t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Answer it.
It's a great movie. Dave and I were just about teenagers when that came out. And I remember just like... even as a young teenager being like, damn, this is a really good movie. Every time the scene comes up with Ricky, I'm like, no, change this. I don't want him to die. When Cuba's like, Ricky!
Yeah, Boys in the Hood.
No, I mean, it's just, Singleton made that, right? It's Singleton's movie, I believe.
I can't remember.
I think he's the director of that. If I could, I always get the director of Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood mixed up. I'm pretty confident, but it's just Boys in the Hood's a great fucking movie. Just well-made movie. Yeah. Really good film.
Yep, for sure.
For sure. Man. Looking forward to next week. 150. I think. I'm quite confident. Y'all are gonna love next week's topic.
150.
I'm very confident.
All right, folks. Have a great week. In the meantime and in between time, we will